Back in here on Football Live on Brilla FM, including details of the draw for the fourth round of the FA Cup, which took place just a short time ago. Make sure that you stay with us between now and 7:30. But right now, let's head around the grounds. First up, of course, we build up to the big clash at the Etihad Stadium, where Manchester City and Chelsea contest for a place in the next round of the FA Cup. Coming up, all the latest team news from that game as we say good afternoon to Jack Hesson. And first of all, Ed Dowling. And Ed, this encounter heavily overshadowed by the recent passing of former Chelsea, Sampdoria and Juventus legend Gianluca Vialli at the age of just 58. Tributes will be appropriately given, of course, this afternoon at the game. And you can't underestimate what a hugely successful player and manager he was at Chelsea. It was a very sad day.
Of course, Chris. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. And he was a Premier League hero for Chelsea. Obviously, he managed them and played for them. And as you've seen this week, many fond memories and tributes pouring in from everyone in the footballing world. He really will be missed. And for these teams as well, they played each other, as you said, on Thursday, 3 days ago. So, of course, there's going to be a lot of rotation. And as we've just found out now, the winner of this side, of this tie, will play the winner of Oxford versus Arsenal in the next round. So it only gets more tricky here, provided Arsenal get through for these two teams. But let's start off with City, the hosts, and lots of rotation considering they only played 3 days ago, as you said, Chris. Summer signing Ortega is between the sticks. They're playing a back four of Kyle Walker, Akanji, Laporte, and also summer signing Sergi Gomez. There's a midfield three of Bernardo Silva, Rodri, and Cole Palmer, all three of which played against Chelsea on Thursday. And that front three is Mahrez, who got the winner against Chelsea, World Cup winner and World Cup hero in Argentina. Julian Alvarez leads the line with Phil Foden on the left wing. Could be an absolute cracker. And on to Jack Hesson with the Chelsea team news.
Yeah, of course, as it's been mentioned, it is a sad few days for Chelsea Football Club in regards to the passing of what is understatably a club legend in Vialli, and it was shock news. Of course, he was famous for winning them the FA Cup in 99 and 2000, in a time period as well. There was so much success for such a great player and manager, and that really has stepped them forward to the success that they brought for the later years. And yeah, at the moment though, the Chelsea team that are coming out are looking to try and stop a third straight defeat against Manchester City. They're on a run of just 3 wins and 10 games in all competitions, and really what a way to try and get the season back on track. They go with a lineup as follows: 6 changes from their midweek defeat to Manchester City in the Premier League. Kepa starts in goals, a backline of Lewis Hall, Trevor Chalobah, Koulibaly, and a debut for 19-year-old Bashir Humphreys in the back line. A midfield of Mason Mount, Jorginho, Mateo Kovacic, Conor Gallagher and Hakim Ziyech play in front of Kai Havertz. As I said, that's really Chelsea. They're out of the league now. They need to try and get trophies under their belt. If they're going to have any kind of success this season, it's going to come in the FA Cup, and they have to win this tonight.
Let's hear now from City boss Pep Guardiola with his thoughts from his recent press conference ahead of this tie this afternoon.
I said many times, when we were able to do not once, many times, these big runs of winnings, never thought about the big runs of winning. I just thought, next game, Chelsea, and after next one. So knowing that every game now is difficult for the quality for the opponents, focusing tomorrow London, what you have to do.
Thoughts there of a City boss Pep Guardiola ahead of the FA Cup clash with Chelsea, just 2 minutes away now. And Ed, there's no doubt City should be confident, having already beaten their opponents twice this season.
Yeah, Chris, it was a really tough-fought game, if you can recall back only a couple of days ago. Really unlucky, I thought, from Chelsea to actually lose as narrowly as they did. But City, and as you can see the lineup today, heavily rotated, but so strong across the board. So Chelsea are going to be right up against it, as Jack said there. The Chelsea team is massively rotated as well. A lot of new players into the fray, and it doesn't get more difficult than the Etihad. So I do think Chelsea are right up against it, against another strong City outfit here at the Etihad, Chris.
Yeah, they certainly are. And it's been a turbulent few weeks for Guardiola's opposite number, Graham Potter. Here is the Chelsea head coach talking about the current injury crisis at Stamford Bridge.
Graham, 2 meetings against Manchester City in the space of just 4 days. Not ideal. And what's also not ideal is that in the first meeting, you've seen a couple of key players pick up injuries.
Well, it doesn't make it any easier. But obviously, too soon. Raheem, first action in the game, so it's a strange one. It's a back heel. And then obviously Christian's full pelt and it's a block or a shot and it's a contact with his knee. Again, with fingers crossed that it's not too bad. But Mason got a kick yesterday as well, which again we're hopeful for the weekend. But it's just one of those things at the moment. It's I've never experienced anything like it. And obviously I wouldn't like to experience it ideally here, but it is what it is, and I have to just carry on.
That's the Chelsea boss, Graham Potter. And Jack, as he just alluded to, the injury plight at the club has certainly played a major factor in their poor season thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. They've not been able to get a full strength lineup up and going, and that's really been part of the reason why I think Potter's been getting a lot more leeway than perhaps some other Chelsea managers would have been in this situation, in this poor run of form that they've been in. I think it's going to be an interesting game because, as we've mentioned, both teams are heavily rotated, so we don't really know what we're going to be expecting from either side. But for Chelsea, really, the two youngsters at left back and right back, Lewis Hall and Bashir Humphreys, they're going to have a really difficult day, I think. But if they do perform to a level and if they step up their game, especially for Bashir Humphreys, only his first professional game, then I think we could be in for an interesting contest. As I said, Chelsea really need to win this if they're going to win anything this season. So for them, it's a must. For City, they're still in the league title, still in the Champions League. Although they want to win everything, that's the kind of team they are. So it really is going to be an interesting battle.
It certainly will. That's Jack Hesson and Ed Dowling reporting on Manchester City against Chelsea in the FA Cup third round at the Etihad. Just about getting underway there. They're just about getting underway too at Villa Park. Aston Villa against Stevenage, as we've highlighted. That is the other featured FA Cup third round tie that we're covering here on Football Live this afternoon. And it's a match that Stevenage boss Steve Evans is relishing.
Also got the small task of Aston Villa coming up as well.
That's easy. That's easy. I watched Park when they beat Spurs yesterday, and I thought, why did Emery come in? Why does he come in? I'm looking forward to meeting Steven Gerrard. Apart from Rangers, he's a hero of mine. But I'm thinking, he comes in and listen, I know John McKinnon. It'll be a fantastic experience, but it can be a scary experience. I've been at Villa Park in charge of teams. The whole end and the rest of it make some great noise, but we're taking a good support, big support for us. And you know what? We want to go there, but we don't want to go there on a day out. That doesn't consider day out Villa Park. I'd rather be here in a league game. But we are there, and we just want to make sure we're competitive. We understand that it's a long shot, but it's a free shot. And I read Neil's words, so they had a free shot here today, and we've had to deal with it. We get a free shot next week at Villa Park. Kick off 4:30. I'll be on the bench.
Well done, Steve.
Thank you.
That's Stevenage's larger-than-life manager, Steve Evans, looking ahead to the FA Club clash at Villa Park, where they played just a minute or so in that game. Aston Villa, of course, heading into this match after a 1-1 draw with West Midlands rivals Wolves on Wednesday night. Danny Ings with a late goal to earn a point. Here is Villa head coach Unai Emery reflecting on that goal from the Villa striker.
Yes, we need players with this impact, like today Danix and others they did, and really they help us to draw, and they help us to have the second half more chances to score and to win the match.
That's the Aston Villa boss Unai Emery following the 1-1 draw with Wolves in midweek. So that match also underway. Aston Villa taking on Stevenage at Villa Park. Let's join Football Live reporter Leon Jones, who can give us all the team news and also an update on the early exchanges in that game. And a few technical difficulties going to Leon, so we'll be coming back to Leon very, very shortly, hopefully. Aston Villa against Stevenage. Tell you what we'll do then. We will check back in with Ed Dowling. In fact, before we do, I can tell you there's been a goal in our featured match in the Spanish La Liga. And I can tell you that it is Rayo Vallecano who have equalised in that game. It's now Rayo Vallecano 2, Real Betis 2. We'll be crossing over to Martin Diaz very, very shortly for news of that goal. Let's head back to the Etihad then. As promised, Manchester City against Chelsea. There are 2 or 3 minutes into the first half in that game. Let's get an update from our reporters Jack Hesson and first of all Ed Dowling.
Yes, Chris, opening exchanges here. City already looking bright as Bernardo Silva just feeds the ball into Alvarez, who I'm sure is desperate for some game time as Erling Haaland's being rotated. We saw a minute's applause, of course, for Gianluca Vialli. I guess you'd have to say one of the biggest figures in Chelsea recent history. Obviously played for them and managed them, which not many players can say. Real tragedy, and let's see if they can use it as motivation, Chris, for this game. But about 2 minutes played here, and even Stevens, as you'd expect.
You certainly would. It's currently goalless then at the Etihad. Manchester City 0, Chelsea 0. Let's see if we can rejoin Leon Jones covering Aston Villa against Stevenage at Villa Park in the FA Cup third round this afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chris. Yeah, 3 Premier League sides have been knocked out by lower league opposition already this weekend, and League 2 Stevenage will be hoping they can make Aston Villa the 4th. Stevenage have reason to be optimistic going into this game because Villa have lost in the FA Cup third round for the last 6 seasons straight. And this time round, with Unai Emery in charge, Villa will be hoping they can make a run this season. 8 changes to the Villa side that drew with Wolves midweek. Matty Cash, Leon Bailey and Douglas and Rees retain places in the team. The full side for Villa is Olsen, Cash, Chambers, Bednarek, Augustinson, Dendonga, Sanson, Louise, Coutinho, Ings and Bailey.
Thanks very much there to Leon Jones covering Aston Villa against Stevenage for Football Live this afternoon, where it is currently goalless. Let's change tack now briefly as we move to action taking place in Spanish La Liga, where our featured match is Rayo Vallecano versus Real Betis. They're into the second half in that game. And of course, as I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, goal news from Martin Diaz to tell us about. Martin, very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon there, Chris. But that goal has just been ruled out for an offside. Vallecano thought they had levelled the game, and it was actually a very good effort from Issa Palazon. But it comes from a free kick delivered into the box. From that free kick, about 5 Vallecano players are offside quite clearly. Betis head the ball away, and it goes to Palazon, who drives in from the right-hand side and scores from the narrowest of angle. But VAR on review has ruled this out for offside from the initial free kick, as there were several Vallecano players actually quite clearly offside. Vallecano going to be feeling pretty hard done by with the way this game has gone for them. Real Betis have only actually had a single shot on target, but they've got 2 goals. The second goal being from an own goal scored by a Vallecano player. Vallecano have probably had the edge, particularly in this second half, but Betis ruthless going forward. What Vallecano need to do in this last 30 minutes or so of the game, find a way to break through this tight Betis defence. But as it stands, 67 minutes played, it's Rayo Vallecano 1, Real Betis 2.
Now, Martin has highlighted earlier, it's a really important clash, this, isn't it? Because these are 2 teams that are competing for potentially a Champions League place this season.
Yeah, Real Betis have had a couple of good seasons in a row at this point. If they do win this game, that does take them up to 4th place in La Liga, so they'll be really trying to push for that, though that would leave Atletico Madrid behind them, but with a game in hand. So if Atletico Madrid win that game in hand, they will be pushed down to 5th place. Vallecano, as it stands, down in 8th, competing with the likes of Villarreal and Athletic Bilbao to try and push into these Europa League, potentially Conference League places. But both sides having pretty good seasons, you'd have to say. Betis, their recent form has actually seen a bit of a downturn, only won 1 of the last 5, so this is a good chance for them to get back to winning ways as well.
That's Martin Diaz reporting on Rayo Vallecano against Betis, where that goal was ruled out, so it remains Rayo Vallecano 1, Betis 2 in that game. A final score from a match that took place earlier on this afternoon in La Liga. Almeria 0, Real Sociedad 2 is how it finished there. And any further updates and developments in the match that we are covering between Rayo Vallecano and Betis this afternoon, you will hear them here on Football Live on Brilla FM, right the way with you through until 7:30 p.m. We'll be running through the draw for the 4th round of the FA Cup a little bit later on. That draw took place about half an hour or so ago. So we'll be running through that and picking out some of the plum ties in the fourth round. But of course, we are concentrating on the action taking place this afternoon. Both matches that we are covering currently underway. Manchester City 0, Chelsea 0 is the latest score there. And in the other game that we are covering, Aston Villa against Stevenage. Let's get a further update on that game from our reporter, Leon Jones, who is covering that this afternoon for Football Live. Leon.
Well, it's been all Aston Villa to start. Coutinho's had the ball and he's looking in danger already for Stevenage. He's had a long-range effort which did sail over the bar, but it's a really promising start for Emery's side. Stevenage just going to try and sit back now, I think, and try and not concede a goal early in this game, otherwise it could be a cricket score. Aston Villa 0, Stevenage 0.
So it remains goalless in that game. Let's just check back in now at the Etihad. Manchester City against Chelsea. Well, I think they've played about 9 minutes of that encounter this afternoon as we cross back to Ed Dowling and Jack Hesson. And first of all, Jack, obviously these two sides played just 3 days ago, so they haven't had too much time to recover, of course, although the wholesale changes being made this afternoon. That really was a big win, wasn't it, for Pep's side over Chelsea to keep up the pressure on Arsenal in the title race. And although we've seen a few chinks in the Manchester City armour recently, they've still got so much quality in their squad, don't they? You can never write them off. They've only been beaten once in their last 11 outings in all competitive competitions.
Well, make no mistake about it, if you asked Guardiola before this week what was the more important game, I have absolutely no doubt he would have said the midweek Premier League game to keep them in the title race, to keep them on Arsenal's coattails. And listen, Chelsea haven't been in good form, but it's still a difficult place to go, and they still came away with a solid 1-0 victory. Their second win over Chelsea of the season. They beat them 2-0, of course, in the League Cup also. And yeah, from this perspective, as I keep mentioning, Chelsea probably want to win this more to try and get themselves any kind of trophy this season. But this is a tough game for them coming into. And really, as I said, it's been 2-0 and 1-0 in the last 2 games. Really, the first thing Chelsea should be looking to try and do is actually get a goal against Manchester City. And they do have the tools to try and cause them issues. I'll pass it over to Ed. What has your thoughts been on Chelsea so far in this game?
Well, it's been the story of the season, really, for Chelsea. I think, obviously, we know Potter likes to dominate the ball. Very, very difficult to do so when you're playing City at home. So they're sitting off a bit. We've just seen Kai Havertz, who does love a foul, stick one into Rodri, who's been down for a bit. It's interesting. It's an interesting lineup for Chelsea. They've got 2 very, very junior fullbacks, which especially against City is going to be a real test. But Potter definitely trusts in the youth. So it should be interesting to see. I think City do have the advantage, but we never know in the FA Cup. The surprises all the time, as we saw yesterday on the show. So it should be a really good game, Jack. But we've played about 10 minutes here. We've just seen City have had the better of it so far, but it's still 0-0 at the Etihad.
Thanks very much to Ed Dowling and Jack Hesson. We await the first goal of the evening then at the Etihad Stadium. It remains goalless there. Also goalless still at Villa Park. Aston Villa against Stevenage. Some terrific action, of course. Excitement and drama in yesterday's third round ties. You heard it all unfold here on Football Live, where, of course, one of the standout results saw Sheffield Wednesday of League One beat Premier League Newcastle to earn a place in the fourth round. Here is the Owls boss, Darren Moore, following that stunning victory.
Yeah, just really pleased with the performance tonight. I think tonight what pleased me most is just the energy that we showed and the game plan that we showed in terms of the way we went about engaging them and not really allowing them to get really much of a foothold in the game very early on. And it was a big commitment by us and a performance by us in terms of the game plan, in terms of what we wanted to do. And we managed to achieve that. We came in at half-time, regrouped and continued the momentum second half. Of course, Josh Windass will get the headlines, but there were some special performances right through the team tonight.
That's Darren Moore, the Sheffield Wednesday manager, after that impressive 2-1 victory against Newcastle in the FA Cup third round yesterday. Elsewhere, Liverpool and Wolves had to settle, of course, for a replay after a thrilling 2-2 draw at Anfield. Wolves having a goal controversially ruled out late on, and the Liverpool boss Jurgen Klopp unhappy at the prospect of a third round replay.
We could still play extra time or a penalty shootout, and the game is decided tonight. So we deserve not more than a draw tonight. So, and whatever the consequences are, in this case, it's an extra game. So that's fine. I have no problem with that. But there was a discussion. I didn't start a discussion. I got a question, and the question was, I don't think we should have them, but I knew we still have them. So, and it was clear that we have now to go to Wolves. Wolves probably in this moment more happy about it than we are, but until then we will be happy enough to give it a go.
That's the Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp following that 2-2 draw with Wolves, having already, of course, made his opinions clear earlier this week, suggesting that FA Cup replays should be scrapped altogether. What are your thoughts on that? Burnley are having a terrific season under Vincent Kompany, top of the Championship, of course, going great guns this season in the second tier in English football, and through to the fourth round of the FA Cup after dispatching Bournemouth. Here is the Clarets head coach following that impressive performance.
Yeah, it was a real cup tie indeed. It just the game never stood still, but nor did we. And the guys, I say it a lot, but again, they can be proud about themselves and the performance. And some players just took their opportunity as well today. And as a coach, I can only be happy about that as well.
That is Vincent Kompany, the Burnley manager, after their 4-2 win at Bournemouth yesterday to progress through to the next round of the FA Cup. Let's head back to the Etihad Stadium, where I think we've had our possibly first clear-cut chance in that game. Manchester City against Chelsea. Ed Dowling, and first of all, Jack Hesson.
Yeah, first real sort of chance of the game came from the left-hand side for Manchester City with Sergio Gomez darting in. He gets the ball into Julian Alvarez. Alvarez takes a loose touch, but his loose touch deflects off Koulibaly, who was scrambling to get there. He's on the ground, hits off of him, goes to Phil Foden, and Phil Foden then tries an overhead kick, which just seems to go wide of the right-hand side. So, first chance of the game, and City really are showing their dominance in this game now. It's 14 minutes played, Manchester City 0, Chelsea 0.
So still goalless there, still goalless too at Villa Park. Aston Villa against Stevenage. Of course, there's plenty of action taking place in the top European leagues as well this afternoon. Our featured match, as we've already mentioned, of course, in Spanish La Liga, Rayo Vallecano against Real Betis. Betis still 2-1 up there with about 13 minutes or so remaining. We'll be crossing to Martin Diaz very, very shortly for an update on that game. Meanwhile, in Italian Serie A, of course, action taking place later on today here on Football Live. Serie A league leaders Napoli, they're in action against Sampdoria. Kickoff is at 7:30 p.m. as we build up to that encounter. Here's Football Live's Isaac Dilks with the starting lineups.
Good evening, Chris. Yeah, we're about 10 minutes away from kickoff here at the Stadio Luigi Ferraris, and Sampdoria obviously reeling still from the tragic passing of Gianluca Vialli earlier this week, but they'll be hoping they can take some of that heartache and pour it into a great performance here. For Sampdoria in goal, we've got Emil Ordero. It looks like a back three of Muru, new signing Bram Neutink in the middle of the three with Jason Murillo on the right-hand side. Wing backs of Orgello and Leris, and then a midfield pivot of Ronaldo Vieira and Thomas Rincon. Just ahead of them in the 10, we have Vere, and then a strike duo of Sam Lammers on loan from Atalanta and Manolo Gabbiadini. As you'd expect from Napoli, a strong side put out, looking to get back to winning ways after that struggled defeat to Inter, their first league defeat of the season on Wednesday evening. In goal, we have Alex Mere, a back four of Mario Rui, Juan Jesus, Kim Min-jae, and the captain Giovanni Di Lorenzo. A midfield three of Frank Zambo Anguissa, Stanislav Lobotka, and Elmas. And then the front three, Kavica Kvaratskhelia on the left, Super Eagle Victor Osimhen, the league's Napoli's top scorer in the league with 9 goals, and on the right-hand side, Matteo Politano. About 10 minutes to kick off, we've got a cracker in Serie A.
We certainly do. We'll be crossing back over to Isaac Dilks a little bit later on as we build up to that match this afternoon, Sampdoria against Napoli. We're going to head now to Barry Swain, who has stepped in to cover Aston Villa against Stevenage. And the League Two side, I believe, from Hertfordshire, of course, good old sunny Hertfordshire, coming very close to breaking the deadlock in that game. Barry.
Oh, John, as close as they could possibly wish to come, because they have put the ball in the back of their net. They're two deadly strikers this season, Luke Norris and Danny Rose, combining brilliantly. It was Luke Norris down the left-hand side, outside of the right boot. He's just played it inside, and Danny Rose finishes it brilliantly past Olsen into the corner. For the first time in their history, Stevenage have come into face-to-face contact with something called VAR, and sadly for them, one of those two strikers was offside, and it was marginal, but it was the correct decision against Danny Rose. And I have to say, leading up in the build-up to the goal, some brilliant play from Stevenage in midfield. They were showing the real Premier League class. Up until now, Aston Villa, a lot of possession, only restricted to shots from outside the box, the best of those from Douglas Luiz, which didn't cause too many problems for Ashby Hammond in the Stevenage goal. He is officially a Premier League player, as he is on loan from Fulham. But it remains Aston Villa 0, Stevenage 0. But don't rule out a shock in this one.
Yeah, Barry, I was going to say, Stevenage, for those that don't know too much about them, they are having an absolutely terrific season in League Two at the moment, having narrowly avoided dropping out of the Football League altogether last season. So they should be full of confidence going into this game.
Yeah, January, they were out of the league as far as many people were concerned. Steve Evans came in from Gillingham, who ironically are now bottom of the league. He's turned things around. He got rid of a lot of players in the summer, and he brought a lot of players in. He hasn't spent a lot of money, but he's turned it around. He's got players that are scoring goals, and they're second in League Two. They're looking good for promotion. They're playing some excellent football, scoring lots of goals, and they're giving Villa one or two problems here. Yes, they're sitting back. Yes, they're digesting a lot of Aston Villa pressure, but on the counter-attack, they've just demonstrated with that goal that was ruled out by offside that they are potent going forward, and that makes this a fascinating cup tie.
Certainly does. We've had a few shocks already. This FA Cup third round. We'll be back with Barry Swain very soon for an update on that third round tie. Aston Villa against Stevenage as we head back to the Etihad. Manchester City against Chelsea. An opportunity for Pep's side, I believe. Ed Dowling.
Yeah, Chris. Simple ball over the top. And there was Cole Palmer driving from midfield. Got in behind the two Chelsea centre-backs. It appears Calibre has gone to the right. And he just couldn't handle Cole Palmer, but his finish wasn't good enough. Maybe he buckled under pressure, we don't know, but he ended up hitting the side netting from what would be quite a decent chance for the home side. But it remains 0-0 here, Chris, 19 and a bit minutes played.
And Jack, what was your take on that opportunity and City starting to look the more likely to break the Chelsea defence down and take the lead?
Well, he has to square that to Julian Alvarez. There's absolutely no excuse for him not to do that. I was really impressed by the run that he made to catch out Chalobah and to be caught out as well. And then the run into the box, even getting it under Kepa's legs and just missing. He is unlucky in that sense, but when you've got your striker to your right-hand side and all that open space and an open goal, you've got to put that into the back of the net. And it is City's game so far. It appears it has been the case. They've had the two chances of the game. Chelsea can't get any kind of control in the game at the moment, and whenever they do have the ball and they're trying to get forward, they're lumping it forward, and City are just dealing with it with relative ease. So far in this game it is all City, but still Manchester City 0, Chelsea 0, 20 minutes played.
So still goalless then in both of our FA Cup third round ties at the moment. You're listening to Football Live here on Brilla FM, and of course you can contact us throughout the afternoon via social media, and here's a brief reminder how.
Don't forget to interact with us on social media here at Brilla FM, at Brilla FM 889 on Twitter, and on Facebook at 889 Brilla FM.
We'll be handing over to Yinka and the team in Nigeria in around about half an hour's time or so for all of your social media comments. We look forward to all that coming up a little bit later on here on Football Live on Brilla FM. Let's just check back in on our featured match in Spanish La Liga this afternoon. Rayo Vallecano against Real Betis. And are Rayo Vallecano coming any closer to getting an equaliser in that game? Martin Diaz.
Well, it's been a real struggle for both of these sides since that disallowed goal around 20 minutes ago now. Vallecano in particular really struggling to break down this Betis defence. Real Betis, though, just had a couple of big chances of their own that could have really finished this game. Luis Enrique picks up the ball on the wide right, drives into the penalty area and smashes a shot in. But Stole Dimitrescu, the Macedonian goalkeeper, able to make the save. With the save, he pushes it out to the wide left-hand side. Alex Moreno picks it up and he smashes one in. No chance for the goalkeeper, but it cannons back off the crossbar. So double chance there, and Vallecano just about getting away with it. 84 minutes on the clock. It's still Rayo Vallecano 1, Real Betis 2.
And there has been an opening goal at the Etihad Stadium. And let's see which way it has gone as we rejoin Jack Hesson and first of all Ed Dowling. Ed.
Yes, Chris, and it's the same man that punished Chelsea on Thursday. Riyad Mahrez, direct from a free kick. Kepa had no chance. It was a silly foul from the Chelsea left-back. I think it was Hall who brought Mahrez down. To be fair, he's got a lot to do from this range, but it nestles perfectly in that top right corner. It actually might have taken a deflection, truth be told. But he won't care. It's 1-0 to City. Jack Hesson, what did you make of that?
Yeah, absolutely lovely finish. I'm not sure if I've seen the deflection yet on that. It's one of those ones that's difficult to tell from the angle, but it was a lovely one. I thought a bit of inexperience there from Lewis Hall to give away the free kick, a dangerous free kick to a dangerous free kick taker in that kind of position. It really kind of shows his inexperience in coming into this game playing at left back. But yeah, the perfect start for City, and the way the game has been going so far, a deserved goal.
So Manchester City then taking the lead at the Etihad Stadium. Riyad Mahrez, of course, he got the winning goal against Chelsea in their Premier League clash on Thursday, breaking the deadlock there in that game. You're listening to Football Live here on Brilla FM. Let's head straight back to Villa Park. Aston Villa against Stevenage, and the visitors from Hertfordshire seem to really be going for it this afternoon. Barry Swain.
Yeah, Steve Evans has got a game plan, and the game plan is working really well. Aston Villa have had probably 80% of the game. But Stevenage are picking the ball up, and when they do pick it up, they're looking dangerous. They've got good outlets on the flanks in the full backs. Clark and James Wilding, and particularly Clark down the left-hand side, loves to get forward. Just a few moments ago, Jake Taylor won the ball in midfield, burst forward, little 1-2 to the edge of the penalty area. It's a little bit unfortunate that he didn't pick up a free kick as a result of the foul by the Aston Villa defender. I think it was Chambers that brought him down, and they played on. Villa went straight down the other end. Philip Coutinho with a shot. It was a looping, lazy effort from about 25 yards, and I'm not being funny, I think I could have caught that with my eyes closed. It really was. It was on target. That's the only compliment I can pay to that chance that was created by Aston Villa. They've huffed and puffed, but at the moment, Stevenage will be very, very happy with the way this game's going. It's still Aston Villa 0, Stevenage 0.
So still goalless there. If you have just joined us, Manchester City have taken the lead against Chelsea in their FA Cup third round tie. Riyad Mahrez on the score sheet for Pep Guardiola's side. We'll be back with Ed Dowling and Jack Hesson very shortly for further updates on that game. Of course, there were plenty of fixtures that took place earlier on this afternoon in the FA Cup third round. Let's just recap the scores for you from this afternoon's matches so far. Bristol City 1, Swansea 1, Derby 3, Barnsley 0, Cardiff 2, Leeds 2. What a game that was. Cardiff were 2 up in that game. Leeds pegged them back and equalised with a 93-minute goal from Sonny Perkins to earn a replay at Ellen Road. Hartlepool 0, Stoke 3, Norwich 0, Blackburn 1. You either beat Blackburn or you either lose to them this season. Stockport 1, Walsall 2. They are all final scores from the FA Cup third round from earlier on today. Of course, we have just had a look at a slight reflection on what took place yesterday. In yesterday's third round ties. We already heard from Darren Moore, Sheffield Wednesday's win against Newcastle. Of course, Sheffield Wednesday now at home to Fleetwood in the fourth round. Liverpool and Wolves, of course, playing out that 2-2 draw. Either one of them will be away to Brighton in round 4. And as for Burnley, after that 4-2 win against Premier League Bournemouth yesterday, they now face a trip to Ipswich Town in the next round of the FA Cup. Elsewhere from yesterday, of course, Blackpool, currently struggling in the Championship, pulled off a really impressive 4-1 win against a much weakened Nottingham Forest side. Steve Cooper obviously looking at maintaining Nottingham Forest's Premier League status this season. League One side Fleetwood Town, of course, they pulled off one of the surprises of the round, as well as they came from behind to dump Championship outfit Queen's Park Rangers out of the competition. And as mentioned, they are now away to Sheffield Wednesday in the next round. Some impressive performances yesterday from a trio of National League, non-league sides, especially Wrexham, who pulled off a remarkable 4-3 win at Coventry as well. Let's head back to the Etihad Stadium. Penalty news possibly. Manchester City against Chelsea. Jack Hesson and first of all Ed Dowling. Ed.
Yeah, they're just looking at it now, Chris. I was just about to say before I came on that Mahrez has actually scored against Chelsea in 3 separate competitions. That's every game he's played against Chelsea, he's scored. So Graham Potter must be sick of the sight of him. But let's talk about this penalty first. It's Koulibaly, and it's a push in the back. It's quite soft, to be fair. We'll see if it gets given or not. But Jack, what did you make of that? It seems to be harsh from where I'm sitting, but the referee might not agree.
I think if that's given, then that's incredibly harsh. There's really not much in that at all. I can't justify if that is given. Yet to see another replay of it that might show a bit more clarity towards it once that's been seen, but at the moment it doesn't look like it's much.
That's Jack Hassan and Ed Dowling reporting on Manchester City against Chelsea. So we'll update you with news of that penalty very, very shortly. In fact, let's head straight back to the boys. Jack Hassan, first of all, Ed Dowling. Ed.
Yes, Chris, well, it has been given, and it's Kai Havertz from a corner, and it's not actually the initial incident I thought it was. A separate incident. The referee has gone to the spot. It's Kai Havertz. It's so silly from a corner. He sticks his hand up in the air, and it is stone wall. So Graham Potter looks on, and come back to me, Chris. I think it's Alvarez stepping up to take this, and this could spell really bad news for Chelsea if he manages to convert. I mean, Kepa is here trying to put him off, but come back to me because this could be really bad for the away side here.
And this could be a really pivotal moment in the game. Just a reminder, in the other feature match, we're covering Villa against Stevenage. It's currently goalless, and I can tell you there is goal news coming in now from the Etihad Stadium. And that penalty has been converted. Manchester City now well in control of that game. Julian Alvarez has slotted the ball home to make it Manchester City 2, Chelsea 0. Let's hear all about it from Jack Hesson and Ed Dowling. Ed.
Yes, Chris, and it's fortunate. Alvarez has converted. It is 2-0. Kai Havertz looks on in despair, but Kepa got a big arm to it. But it just nestles in that bottom left corner. And it's slightly unlucky for Chelsea as a team. They've played quite well today. But Havertz, I don't know what he's doing with his arm up like that. He must be really disappointed. We've just seen the penalty here again. Havertz, if he's got a bit of a stronger wrist to it, he could have prevented his side from going 2 down. But it looks like Chelsea are really up against it now, the Etihad. I think Potter must be thinking, look, let's try and not get battered here. Jack, what do you make of that penalty? Kepa, he was close, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was really close to getting his glove onto that. Julian Alvarez, of course, would have experience of penalties given the World Cup success of Argentina, the amount of penalty shooters they had to play and I'm sure trained for. So he's becoming a bit of an established penalty taker, I'd assume, in that sense. And really, it's good for him that he's managed to get a goal in what is a rare start for him, for Chelsea now. Yeah, it's really about stopping the rot and stopping this going from bad to worse. And above all else, they've had some spells of the ball, but when it gets to that final third, they just can't get a clinical touch or a clinical pass away that will lead them to any kind of chance on goal, and that's been the problem at the moment. Right now, it's just about trying to even hold this out to half-time at 2-0 and then take it from there. With 30 minutes played, and it's Manchester City 2, Chelsea 0.
So Manchester City well in control of that game. And as for Chelsea now, their season, as the boys just mentioned, really going from bad to worse now. And at the moment, as it stands, they are heading out of the FA Cup at the first hurdle. Let's get an update from Villa Park. Aston Villa against Stevenage. Barry Swain.
Yeah, still Aston Villa 0, Stevenage 0, 78% possession from Aston Villa. But what sums them up at the moment, Aston Villa, is they've just got no punch going forward. A typical example of that is their two wide men. Leon Bailey down the right-hand side hits the byline, sends a cross in. There's no one in the 6-yard box, so it goes deep to the left-hand side. On the other flank, you've got Philip Coutinho. He decides to swing towards goal, and it's miles off target. It's a really poor effort. It's not even League Two standard. Stevenage have looked dangerous going forward. When they do have the ball, they've been very neat and tidy in possession. As I say, Aston Villa have dominated. Stevenage have had the best chance, but it remains Aston Villa 0, Stevenage 0.
And we're going to be heading over to the match we're covering in Italian Serie A very shortly. That's Sampdoria against Napoli. But we have, in fact, got goal news from Villa Park. Just as we left Barry there, I can tell you that Aston Villa have taken the lead in their FA Cup third round encounter. It's now Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 0. Let's hear about the goal from Barry Swain.
Yes, and Stevenage's resistance is broke. It's a good little interchange in the midfield. Bailey in through towards Sansom. And Sansom, the midfielder, has taken a touch inside the box. And Morgan Sansom picking his spot from the angle on the right-hand side, putting it just underneath the goalkeeper, Ashby Hammond, and into the corner. It's the first real chance of this afternoon's game for Aston Villa, but it's clinical from Sansom. And it's Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 0.
So goals now then in both of our featured matches in the FA Cup third round this afternoon here on Football Live. Now Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 0, as you just heard. Morgan Sanson with the goal for Aston Villa, giving them the lead. And Manchester City well in front at the Etihad. They lead Chelsea by 2-0, courtesy of goals from Mahrez and also Alvarez as well from the penalty spot. We'll be across those two games once again very, very shortly here on Football Live. But, of course, we've got action in Italian Serie A this afternoon. Sampdoria against Napoli. Of course, it's a very, very emotional and emotive affair at the ground this afternoon following the recent passing of one of their legends, Gianluca Vialli. And here is the great man himself discussing his career.
I've been lucky. No, I've been lucky because someone says that in order to be successful, you need to identify early and clearly what you want to do in life. And when I was 3, someone threw a ball at me. I kicked it, and I realised what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I had a little advantage. No, but I've been very lucky because I've done what I wanted to do. I've made money. I've been successful. I've met so many incredible people. I've been living in Cremona, Turin, Genoa, and finally London. And it's just the best.
That's the great Gianluca Vialli. We are going to head straight away now to the Stadio Comunale Luigi Ferraris to join Isaac Diltz, where I believe we have penalty news possibly in that game, Sampdoria against Napoli. Isaac.
Yes, Chris, we're only 4 minutes in here, and after some touching tributes to Gianluca Vialli and a minute's applause, Napoli were on the offensive immediately. And Frank Zambo Anguissa makes a late run into the box. It's a chip ball over the top by Napoli. He gets on the end of it, and it's just a little nudge in the back from the Sampdoria defender. I think it's Jason Murillo who gives it away. It went to VAR. The referee went to the monitor. Rosario Obiso, the referee, chose to overturn his decision, and Napoli have been given a penalty. And we'll see if Victor Osimhen can slot this away to take Napoli 1-0 up early in the game. Still 0-0
Thanks very much.
after 4 minutes.
Thanks very much to Isaac Dilks. They're reporting on Sampdoria against Napoli. News of that penalty coming up very, very shortly here on Football Live on Brilla FM. The final whistle has gone in our feature match in Spanish La Liga this afternoon. Let's get a full-time report on the match between Rayo Vallecano and Real Betis for the final time this afternoon. Martin Diaz.
Well, it has finished here. Vallecano 1, Real Betis 2. Vallecano are going to feel a little bit hard done by. They've probably had the better of the game in quite a lot of moments here, and they do lose out the difference between an own goal early in that first half. They had that goal disallowed, didn't they, in the 65th minute? But again, that's a difficult decision for the referee, but probably the correct decision. And just a moment ago, they had a huge chance in the 5th minute of added time Raul Tomas getting on the end of a perfect cross into the box. He slides in, but he gets it all wrong, and the ball has gone nowhere near the goal. Really tough on Vallecano, but that sends Real Betis up to 4th place. Atletico Madrid behind them in 5th, do have a game in hand, but challenging for Champions League football as we approach the second half of the La Liga season. Real Betis going to be happy with how things have been going so far. Full time here, it's Rayo Vallecano 1, Real Betis 2.
So 3 points go the way of Real Betis. Further goal news from the Etihad Stadium. And I can tell you that Manchester City have extended their lead. They are now running riot against Chelsea. We've still got about another 6.5 minutes or so to go until the halftime interval. But it's now Manchester City 3, Chelsea 0. Chelsea just haven't turned up this afternoon. Manchester City 3, Chelsea 0. Phil Foden with the third goal for Manchester City. We'll be back with Ed Dowling and Jack Hesson very, very shortly for news of that third goal. But as it stands at the moment, without question, Manchester City sailing through to the next round of the FA Cup, 4th round, aren't they, Ed Dowling?
It's an absolutely wonderful goal from Manchester City. It's about a 15, 16, 17 pass move from City, and they're just passing through Chelsea, but they're not even there. You see this sometimes with City when they're really hitting their stride. It goes from left to right, and it ends up with Kyle Walker on the byline, crosses it in. Phil Foden, in acres of space, he's found himself in the middle of the box. It's 3-0. What a brilliant team goal from City. And things aren't looking good for Chelsea. And I feel sorry for these Chelsea fullbacks especially. You could argue they're at fault, especially the right back, who seems to just get completely lost by the amazing passing from the home side. But it's another goal for City, and Potter needs to sort this out quick, because this could get very, very, very ugly for Chelsea. Jack Hesson, what did you make of that goal? Superb play from Pep Guardiola's side.
It is absolutely classic Pep Guardiola. All came from, I believe it was Kovacic in the middle of the park. He gets closed down by Mahrez and Rodri, and from there they just pass it about, comfortable, patient, but at the same time passing with purpose. At one point it's as if the Chelsea players just aren't even there. They're trying to shrug them off the ball, they're trying to chase the ball, they can't get there. Lovely finish from Foden, but it's all about that build-up play. Chelsea, they've been ill-disciplined. They don't look like they've got anything going forward. They look like a team full of midfielders without any attacking focal point. This has been quite simply embarrassing for Chelsea. I know they're playing a good Manchester City side, but with the two left-backs and the left-back Hall and the right-back Humphreys being completely hung out to dry as well, it's really been disappointing from Potter's men. But for Guardiola, it's been the absolute perfect game so far. We are just 40 minutes played here, and it's Manchester City 3, Chelsea 0.
Jack, just looking at the broader picture in terms of Chelsea, one football journalist suggested this week that Chelsea fans should be worried about the long-term vision of the club, because at present it's non-existent. Is that a fair comment?
I think that is fair comment. It's felt like that's been the case for a few weeks now. I remember watching them in that game against Brighton where they got beat 4-1, and they just don't look that convincing. They've got a structure of a team there, but when you look at who they're playing up front, they're playing Kai Havertz, an attacking midfielder, great attacking midfielder up front. They're playing Hakim Ziyech, who's more a midfielder out in the wing, and it's the same with Conor Gallagher playing out wide as well. They're not playing players in the positions that they should be, and I think that's having an effect on them as well. They don't have a focal point. They thought that was going to be Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. It hasn't been, and in January really what they need to look for is an actual striker who can lead the line for them, because you'll get results like this if you can't start scoring goals and causing threats further up the park.
That's Jack Hesson and Ed Dowling reporting on Manchester City against Chelsea at the Etihad. Manchester City 3 goals to the good now in that game as we head back to Villa Park. Aston Villa against Stevenage. Unai Emery's side still hanging on to that lead. Barry Swain.
Well, it's one bit of quality that has them ahead, but Stevenage have come very close to equalising. Again, all the danger coming down the left-hand side. Luke Norris, who seems to be residing pretty much on this left-hand side, he's cut inside and he's decided to go for a curler. He's curled it over the top, of Robin Olsen, and it's just clipped the top of the crossbar on its way out for a goal kick. Since then, and that was only a couple of minutes ago, Stevenage have had another attack down the left-hand side with Clark. Another good attack just a few moments ago through James Wilding, the right wing back. They're not afraid to get forward when they do get the ball. Aston Villa had a lot of ball, just one little bit of quality, as I say, for the goal from Sansom. Since then, we've seen Coutinho turn on the silky skills down the left-hand side, but again, it was a poor finish from Douglas Luiz. His shot was nearer the corner flag than the goal, and it remains with, just about 2.5 minutes plus injury time remaining in the first half. Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 0.
So we're closing in on half-time on both of our featured matches in the FA Cup third round this Sunday afternoon here on Football Live. You just heard there, Aston Villa still leading Stevenage by 1-0. Manchester City 3 up at home to Chelsea. In around about just over 5 minutes' time or so, we will be heading back over to Yinka and our colleagues in Nigeria for all of your social media comments. So much to talk about. And, of course, you can still get involved as well. Here's a quick reminder how.
Don't forget to interact with us on social media here at Brilla FM, at Brilla FM 889 on Twitter, and on Facebook at 889 Brilla FM.
Absolutely. Plenty up for discussion, certainly on the Chelsea front at the moment, because their season is just imploding. Of course, 10th in the Premier League at the moment and heading out of the FA Cup as well. So lots to talk about there. Let's head back to Isaac Dilks for news of that penalty miss at Sampdoria against Napoli. Isaac.
Yeah, it's Matteo Politano, who actually takes a really good penalty, low down to the goalkeeper's left, cleanly struck right along the floor, but Emil Odero pulled out a brilliant stop, a massive left hand, pushes the ball onto the post, and none of the Napoli players could get the rebound on the way in, and it's spewed out for a corner. Napoli have still had all the ball in the last few minutes, but currently it's 13 minutes gone, still Sampdoria 0, Napoli 0.
And Isaac, just touching on Sampdoria, it's had a very emotive day, of course, following the recent passing of Gianluca Vialli. For them, the World Cup and winter break came at just the right time, didn't it, really? Because prior to the break, they suffered 4 consecutive Serie A defeats. They bounced back from that break with that 2-1 win at fellow strugglers Sassuolo in midweek, but still a huge task ahead, isn't there, if they're to avoid dropping out of the top flight this season?
Yeah, Dejan Stankovic has got his work cut out for him. I've only 2 wins in the league this season. Sampdoria have been on really poor form, as you say, but hopefully they can find a little something after being buoyed by that win against Sassuolo in midweek. And obviously Napoli coming off that loss, so if anything pointing towards an upset, it'll be those last 2 results. So hopefully Sampdoria can conjure up something in the attacking third and make this game into a real contest.
But it still remains goalless in that featured match that we are covering in Italian Serie A this afternoon. Into the 15th minute of that game, Sampdoria 0, Napoli 0. We are approaching half-time at the Etihad as we cross back to Jack Hassan and also Ed Dowling as well. And Pep side, I think, are looking to extend their lead still further in that game. Ed Dowling.
Yes, Chris, and it was nearly 4, and this is getting embarrassing for Chelsea. It was another chance similar, actually, to the third goal, but it came off the left side. I think as Alvarez squared the ball in to Foden again, who just quite couldn't reach the ball, and it went out to the Chelsea defender. But I'd be interested to hear from some Chelsea fans at half-time, because this has been really poor, considering how much they've spent and the long-term vision that Todd Boehly allegedly has for Chelsea. They look desperate out there. We've seen teams like Everton come and get a result to City this season, and Chelsea looks so far off the pace. But it's nearing half-time. 3-0 to Manchester City, and Potter's got a lot of work to do in the second half, Chris.
Thanks very much, Ed. So as we approach half-time there, it remains Manchester City 3, Chelsea 0. They have reached half-time at Villa Park. Aston Villa against Stevenage as we rejoin Barry Swain for a half-time report.
Yes, Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 0. A goal 12 minutes from half-time from the midfielder Sansom. The difference between the two sides, Morgan Sansom, the Frenchman, bursting into the penalty area. The angle wasn't totally on his side. He composed himself and drilled a low, hard shot beyond the Stevenage goalkeeper Ashby Hammond for the only goal of the game. Other than that, Aston Villa have been pretty poor in front of goal. Chances have been restricted to distance, and Douglas Luiz and Philip Coutinho both off range with good openings, albeit from outside the penalty area. Stevenage have only had about 22% possession, but when they have had the ball, they've looked dangerous going forward. We've seen a curling effort just before half-time almost result in an equaliser. Norris's effort just clipping the top of the crossbar on its way out for a goal kick. But they've caused problems. They did have the ball in the net with a breakaway. Norris crossing in their go-to man, Danny Rose, sweeping the ball confidently home past Olsen for what looked like an opening goal. VAR intervened. It was marginal, but it saved Aston Villa, who have since gone and scored themselves. The Premier League side are ahead, but the League Two side not out of this one just yet. Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 0 at half-time.
Half-time whistle has also gone at the Etihad Stadium. Ed Dowling and, first of all, Jack Hesson.
Yeah, Pep Guardiola will be a happy man. Graham Potter very much not so at half-time here at the Etihad Stadium. It's Manchester City 3, Chelsea 0, and it has been all one-way traffic. Not a single attempt on goal from Graham Potter's men. City had some early dominance, but it paid off in the 23rd minute with a free kick poorly given away by youngster Lewis Hall to give Riyad Mahrez the chance to make it 1-0, and he did so, putting it into the top left-hand corner. And then from a corner, Kai Havertz handles the ball. It's given as a penalty, coolly put in by Alvarez. Kepa managed to get a touch on it, but Alvarez's shot was just too powerful and went into the back of the net for 2-0. And then after a lovely 17, 18, 19, 20 pass play from Manchester City, passing around the Chelsea midfield and defence to get the ball to Phil Foden in the middle of the box, who was in for a tap-in to make it 3-0. All one-way traffic, and I would like to know your thoughts on that, Ed Dowling.
Yes, Jack, very quickly. I mean, I've just seen the XG stats, and Chelsea accumulated 0.00 XG, which really sums that first half. Terrible from Graham Potter's men, and boos were ringing round the away end at half-time, so we'll have to see what he can change. But so far, Chris, not happy watching for Chelsea fans. It's 3-0 here in Manchester.
So let's just recap the two FA Cup third round scores that we have for you from our two featured games. Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 0, and Manchester City 3, Chelsea 0. We'll be across the second halves here on Football Live on Brilla FM. But coming up next, we head back to Yinka and the team in Nigeria for all of your social media comments on all the action that has taken place this weekend. You are listening to Football Live on Brilla FM with Chris Baldwin. Indeed, welcome back to Football Live with you right the way through until 7:30 p.m. and some interesting calls and thoughts from people there with in that phone-in with Yinka and the crew in Nigeria. With one call, as you heard, they're just saying that he reckons at the end of this match, Chelsea will sack Graham Potter. We shall wait and see. But at halftime, of course, it is Manchester City 3, Chelsea 0. City going in front in that game, courtesy of a goal from Riyad Mahrez in the 23rd minute. Julian Alvarez converted a penalty on the half-hour mark. And then about 7 minutes before the break, Phil Foden added a third. The problems mounting for Chelsea. And in the other featured match we're covering in the FA Cup third round this afternoon, Aston Villa leading Stevenage at the break by 1-0. Morgan Sanson with the first half strike for Aston Villa. We'll be back with our top team of reporters throughout the course of the second half here on Football Live on Brilla FM. The second half's getting underway very, very shortly. But I can tell you in a featured match in Italian Serie A, there has been goal news to tell you about in that game. And let's hear all about it from our reporter, Isaac Dilks. Isaac.
Yes, it's Nigeria and Napoli's leading man. It's Victor Osimhen with his 10th Serie A goal of the season and a 6th assist for Mario Rui. The ball just comes in from that left flank, that wonderful left foot that Rui possesses, and Osimhen, it's a very similar goal to the ones you've seen him score before, just gets in front of his man, in behind the back line, and he slides on this soaking wet pitch in Sampdoria to just poke a foot at it just inside the 6-yard box, and it beats Ordero, who has been staunch for Sampdoria in goal so far. So after 25 minutes, it's Napoli 1, Sampdoria 0.
And Isaac, that is a big, big goal for Napoli, isn't it? Because it could, if they secure all 3 points this afternoon, extend their lead to 7 points at the top of Serie A. They're searching, of course, for their first title in over 30 years. They've had a memorable season, as we all know. And, of course, they had that defeat in midweek as well. But if they could open up a 7-point lead at the top of the table, that's going to be really significant at this stage of the season, isn't it?
It would be enormous for Napoli, coming back from the World Cup break. Obviously, unusual times for all top European leagues. But they could have easily lost all their swagger that they've been playing with, lost that momentum, especially after that loss in midweek to Inter, like you say. But they're playing with all that rejuvenation and swagger that we've seen previously, just controlling the ball. The midfield of Anguissa and Lobotka has been unbelievable so far, and Osimhen just won't stop running. So all of that momentum seems to still be there, even after that harsh loss in midweek. Still 0-0 after 30 minutes.
And a mouth-watering clash on Friday this week when they play at home to Juventus, of course, who won yesterday. They beat Udinese by a single goal, currently second in the table. So that fixture on Friday evening has huge implications on the title race.
Yes, enormous. Obviously, Napoli are looking to secure that top spot. And that's a massive fixture. Udinese have been brilliant this year. And obviously, a big game with Juventus just this week as well. It's a massive period for them straight out of the World Cup, with loads of games in quick succession. So we'll see how the squad depth can handle it. They've scored goals from all over the place up top. Giovanni Simeone and Giacomo Raspadori have done really well backing up Victor Osimhen so far. So we'll see if they can continue that throughout the rest of the season.
That's Isaac Dilks reporting on Sampdoria against Napoli, where it is currently 1-0 to Napoli, as you just heard. And any further developments in that game, you'll hear all about them here on Football Live on Brilla FM. They're into the 30th minute or so of that match. The second half's just about to get underway in our two FA Cup third round ties that we are focusing on this afternoon. Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 0, and of course Manchester City 3, Chelsea 0 at the Etihad. Earlier on today, Bristol City and Swansea, they go to a replay after a 1-1 draw in their FA Cup third round tie. Derby dispatched Barnsley quite comfortably by 3-0. Cardiff 2, Leeds 2 is how it finished at the Cardiff City Stadium. Cardiff were 2 up in that game, but Leeds pegged them back and got a goal into 3 minutes of time added on, courtesy of Sonny Perkins, to take a replay back to Ellen Road. Stoke City won 3-0 at Hartlepool. Blackburn won away at Carrow Road to dump Norwich City out of the FA Cup, and it ended Stockport 1, Walsall 2. They were the fixtures from earlier on today in the FA Cup third round. Of course, the final tie of the FA Cup third round takes place tomorrow night in a 9 p.m. kickoff. Should be a brilliant occasion as well for the Oxford United supporters as they host Arsenal with Mikel Arteta's side coming to town. The Gunners are, of course, the most successful club in the history of the FA Cup, having won the competition on 14 occasions, most recently in 2020. It should be a fairly straightforward test, you would think, for the Premier League side tomorrow, who play an Oxford United team who have had just one win in their last 5 League Two outings. Incidentally, the last time these two sides met was, funnily enough, exactly 20 years ago at the same stage of the FA Cup, when goals from Dennis Bergkamp and an own goal from Scott McNiven secured Arsenal's passage through to the 4th round of the Cup. That was 20 years ago. A sellout crowd at the Kazam Stadium tomorrow night. Oxford United against Arsenal, kickoff at 9 p.m. I think Arsenal actually went on to win the FA Cup that season as well, wasn't it? 2003. I seem to remember they beat Southampton in the final, I think. They have got underway at Villa Park. Aston Villa against Stevenage. The second half well underway there now. Let's just give you a few other latest scores. First of all, in Italian Serie A, let's give you some final scores from earlier on today. Salernitana 1, Torino 1, Lazio 2, Empoli 2, and Spezia 0, Lecce 0. They are all final scores. Napoli still a goal to the good at Sampdoria, with Victor Osimhen on the score sheet, of course, for Napoli, as they look to open up a 7-point lead at the top of the table. In La Liga, it ended Almeria 0, Real Sociedad 2, and Rayo Vallecano 1, Real Betis 2. That was our featured match in the Spanish top flight this afternoon. They are just underway. Sevilla against Getafe, where it's currently goalless. They're into the 6th minute of that game there. Of course, Real Madrid went down, didn't they? Villarreal beat them 2-1 yesterday. Just looking at the top of the table, Barcelona and Real still fighting it out toe-to-toe. Both sides on 38 points at the moment, but Barca with a game in hand. And elsewhere in the Scottish Premiership, I can tell you that it's Dundee United 0, Rangers 2. That's currently the score there in that game. There's been an early opportunity in the second half at Villa Park. Aston Villa against Stevenage. Here's Barry Swain.
Yeah, their outlet down the right-hand side is Leon Bailey. Now, I've seen Leon Bailey play quite a lot in the Bundesliga before he came over to England, and he's failed to deceive, really. He's fluttered to deceive, rather, since he's arrived in Aston Villa colours. He was good in the Bundesliga, I felt, but he's hit and miss in Aston Villa colours, and that was perhaps epitomised in the first chance of the second half. He's gone down the right-hand side, he's cut in for the right-hand side, he's gone the cross, and the cross has gone straight to no man's land, the one area just at the edge of the penalty area. There's no one, but it returned straight to him. He had another bite of the cherry. This time he managed to find one of his teammates on the edge of the penalty area. The shot was blocked. It went out wide to the left-hand side. Coutinho recycled it. Ings flicked it over his shoulder, and it ended up filtering back through to Leon Bailey, and he crashed a horrible shot which took a deflection wide for a corner. But really, it was a tale of woe for Leon Bailey in that particular counter-attack. But Villa have dominated, the first 3 minutes of the second half. It's all Aston Villa, as it was in the first half in terms of possession, but they're trying to put a little bit of quality into the final third at the moment, and you feel that if they get the next goal in this game, it will be game over for League Two Stevenage. 1-0, it's still there for the taking. Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 0.
A big day out for Stevenage this afternoon, but still trailing there. Let's head back to the Etihad Stadium. Second half underway. Manchester City against Chelsea. Manchester City with that commanding lead. Let's get an update on the early salvos of the second half from our reporters Jack Hesson and, first of all, Ed Dowling.
Yes, Chris, and I expect this to take a very similar type of structure to the first half. It's City just dominating the ball in the Chelsea half. It looks like Dennis Zakaria has come on for Chelsea to sort of shore up that midfield and that defence. He'll be sitting quite deep. I think the plan now, unfortunately for Chelsea, is just to keep it at 3-0, see if you can maybe snatch a chance away, but it's going to be very tricky to come back now. I'd be interested to hear, Jack, what you have to say about it, because what realistically can Potter do at this stage of play? 45 minutes left to overturn a 3-0 deficit in the FA Cup against City.
I think it's going to have to be a bit of luck to get them back into the game at this rate. City, they look like they might take their foot off the gas now that it is 3-0. They can try and consolidate and hold on to that and not, there's important Premier League games coming up, so that might be on Guardiola's mind. Looking at who Potter's brought on, as you mentioned, he brought on Zakaria. He also brought on David Fofana for his first ever game. He signed recently from Molde. I believe it was 14 goals or 15 goals in 24 appearances for Molde. This is his first game, a bit of a baptism of fire, but also you can look at it and say there isn't a lot of pressure on him either, and that might play into his favour. At the moment, it has mostly been City at the start of the second half. We are 49 minutes played. It's Manchester City 3, Chelsea 0.
So City still with that commanding lead there. In case you weren't aware, the draw for the fourth round of the FA Cup was made a little bit earlier on today. Just briefly reflecting again, though, on yesterday's matches involving certainly the non-league teams as well. Of course, we already mentioned that Wrexham pulled off that fantastic 4-3 win at Coventry. Non-league Chesterfield also, they were just moments away from putting Championship West Brom out in a thrilling 3-3 draw. Brandon Thomas' Asante stoppage time equaliser, earning Chesterfield a money-spinning replay at the Hawthorns, and who I think they would have been happier to have, of course, progressed through to the fourth round of the FA Cup. Another non-league team still left in the competition, Boreham Wood. They live to fight another day following a 1-1 draw at home to League One Accrington. Boreham Wood, of course, reached the fifth round in last season's FA Cup, knocking out the likes of Bristol Rovers and also most notably Bournemouth as well, you'll remember. Elsewhere, of course, yesterday in the All-Premier League clash, Southampton came from behind to beat Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park. A first win for New Saints head coach Nathan Jones. Other Premier League teams safely through to the fourth round, including Tottenham, Leicester, Fulham, West Ham and Brighton, who put 5 past Middlesbrough. We'll be going through the draw for the fourth round of the FA Cup very, very shortly, but we head back to Villa Park, where there's been another opportunity for the Villains, I believe. Barry Swain.
Yes, indeed, Chris. Well, it was a good opportunity. They just haven't got the shooting boots on at the moment, Aston Villa. It's fallen to Coutinho. Lovely little play down the left-hand side. Augustinsson, who's playing at left-back today, the Swede for Aston Villa. Most of his play today has been attacking play, obviously, coming forward on the left-hand side. And he's got the ball, and he's played it into the feet of Coutinho. Coutinho's opened up his body. Now, Philip Coutinho, we know, is a quality player, and we're expecting him to curl it into the top corner. And he's miles from goal. There's no bend on it at all. It's just a straight kick out for a goal kick, and it's miles away from goal, and no problems at all for Ashby Hammond in the Stevenage goal. Just seen an effort from Douglas Luiz. He's got the same shooting boots on as Coutinho. He's just fired one from just outside the penalty area. I think it's still rising into the whole end as I speak, and it remains Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 0, and Stevenage are just about in this still.
Barry, just a word on Unai Emery. He took over the hot seat at Villa Park, as we know, back in November, and in that time, they've beaten some big teams, haven't they? Manchester United, Tottenham, and also Brighton as well in the Premier League. They picked up a point against Wolves, as we know, on Wednesday, courtesy of that late goal from Danny Ings. Premier League survival, obviously, without question, the main priority this season. But you just get the sense that a really good FA Cup run would be a bonus and would possibly help their Premier League campaign this season.
Yeah, clubs like Villa, just to get to the last four, get to Wembley, day out at Wembley, you never know, where it goes from there. They're certainly solidified. They should have enough on paper to stay up. That's not to say that they will stay up, but they should have enough on paper. They've certainly improved under Unai Emery. He's got a point to prove. Didn't quite work for him at Arsenal, and it's not until he went away from Arsenal and you look back a year or two later, you actually look back and think, but you know what, it wasn't as bad as they made it out to be. His record was fairly decent with Arsenal, perhaps given a little bit more more time. It fell a bit flat towards the end. He's got a point to prove, and he's got a decent side here for Aston Villa. I know that there's rumours that they're going to be busy in the January transfer window. They've looked dominant today. It's been difficult for them playing against the League Two side, but a lot of the ball, and the visitors have been sitting with 10 men behind the ball. So it's been very, very difficult to break them down. Lacking quality in that final third is something that stood out today, and when I've seen them this season, that's certainly been the case. But, you know, I think it's definitely improved it, if nothing else, and I think they'll be okay. But yes, a cup run is just what the doctor ordered for Villa fans, I'm sure.
Thanks very much, Barry. Barry Swain reporting on Aston Villa against Stevenage. Villa still a goal to the good in that game. Red card news from our featured match in Italian Serie A. Sampdoria against Napoli. Here's Isaac Diltz.
Yeah, it's a red card here for Sampdoria in the 40th minute of the game, just before half-time. A really headless challenge from Sampdoria midfielder Thomas Rincon. It's Victor Osimhen again, who picks the ball up on the right flank. He brushes off Knighting so easily, leaves him in the dust, and it's Rincon comes charging across, leaves a flailing leg on Osimhen. I think he's been sent off for denying a clear goal-scoring opportunity as Napoli have a free kick just right on the edge of the box. So yeah, after 40 minutes gone, Sampdoria 1-0 down, and unfortunately down to 10 men.
And Isaac, the Sampdoria manager Dejan Stankovic recently saying that he views the restart as a new season. Obviously today was also always going to be a massive test for them, and they're really up against it now, aren't they? And they could be about 6 points or so adrift of safety by close of play today.
Yeah, Sampdoria in 18th place before the start of play today, and it's looking like it's going to stay that way, if not get even worse. 1-0 down here, not looking like getting back into the game. And unfortunately, it's just a really headless challenge from Thomas Rincon. He doesn't need to make it. There's a covering defender just getting into the box, marking Kvaratskhelia. And I think he should back Cordero to make the save. But like I say, just headless, chaotic challenge. And unfortunately, it's led to an early shower for him. So after 42 minutes, it's still Sampdoria 0, Napoli 1.
Back to the Etihad Stadium we go. Manchester City against Chelsea, and are Graham Potter's side coming any closer to reducing the deficit in that game? Ed Dowling.
You know what, Chris? I think they are, actually. I think Mason Mount just got brought down there by Rodri quite deep into the City half. Rodri picked up a yellow card for his troubles, and then with the following set piece, Mount was released on the right side and flashed a shot across Ortega's goal. Very, very close, actually, to pegging one back there, the away side, Chelsea. So we'll have to wait and see. But bright signs so far from the away side. Jack, what did you make of that chance? Mason Mount, he's had a bit of a tricky day out there, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, the first thing that Chelsea have had to do in coming into the second half is actually get chances on goal. When they've done that now, and they can try and, push forward into the game a bit more. It's difficult to tell at the moment how City will react to that. It's the first real spell Chelsea have had. You look at City, they're playing Ortega in goals. He's a backup goalkeeper. He's not been tested at all. He made a good save of that, but they need to start testing him more. They're getting a bit of more of a foothold into the game, so it'll be interesting to see for the next 10 minutes or so if they can capitalise on this small bit of dominance that they're starting to get in this game. However, 56 minutes played, it's still Manchester City 3, Chelsea 0.
Yes, so City still very much comfortably in that, comfortably in control of that game as Chelsea look to find a way back into the match. Back with Ed Dowling and Jack Hesson very, very shortly here on Football Live on Brilla FM as we head back to Villa Park as Stevenage Borough look to get back on level terms, and they've gone close. Barry Swain.
Well, I wouldn't say close, but they've just forced their first corner, and it's their first real attack of the first 13, 14 minutes of the second half. It was a corner on the right-hand side, and it was swung in from the right-hand side from Sweeney, and it hit the head, or it found the head of Pierre Gianni. Now, he scored a few goals, the central defender, and he found himself largely unmarked. Villa not really picking him up, 6 yards out, but he's aimed the header just wide of the post by about a yard or so. Not really the connection he would have wanted, not really the marking, that Unai Emery would have wanted. Just looking down below, looks like Stevenage are just about to refresh things. An unusual sight on the screen. Big Steve Evans, the Stevenage manager, standing there. His assistant manager there is writing down something ferociously, whether it's a pizza order or a list of players that he's going to bring on, not too sure. But he's still writing down as I speak right now. Steve Evans looks like he's going to make a change. He needs to make a change quickly. At 1-0, they're still just about in it, Stevenage. Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 0.
These are the latest score from Villa Park, and it remains Manchester City 3, Chelsea 0 at the Etihad Stadium. Now, the fourth round draw, of course, for the FA Cup was made about half an hour or so before kickoff of the Manchester City-Chelsea game this afternoon. Let's just run through the draw with you. Preston, well, they face Tottenham at Deepdale. What a plum tie that is for the Championship side. Southampton are at home to Blackpool. Wrexham, one of three non-league teams still left in the competition. They will play Sheffield United. Ipswich Town versus Burnley. Manchester United against Reading. You would expect United to progress safely through to the next round in that game. At Luton Town or Wigan take on Grimsby. Derby County versus West Ham. The winners of Aston Villa or Stevenage will face a trip to the Britannia Stadium where they play Stoke City. Elsewhere, the other fourth round ties. Blackburn Rovers versus Forest Green Rovers or Birmingham City. Walsall, well, they will play at home to Leicester City, who, of course, went through courtesy of a single goal yesterday in their defeat of Gillingham, of course. Elsewhere, the other fourth round ties for you to look forward to. Sheffield Wednesday, who beat Newcastle yesterday 2-1. They are at home to Fleetwood Town. Manchester City or Chelsea, looking like Manchester City at the moment, will play Oxford United or Arsenal. Now, you'd expect Arsenal to sail through that match tomorrow evening. Kick-off at 9 p.m. And of course, if that is the case and City do beat Chelsea, that will be effectively the tie of the fourth round. Another big Premier League name potentially going out in the next round of the FA Cup. Elsewhere, the other fourth round ties to look forward to. Bristol City or Swansea City will play against Chesterfield. Of course, another long league team, or West Brom. Brighton are at home to Liverpool or Wolves. Fulham entertain Sunderland. And finally, Boreham Wood or Accrington Stanley will face Cardiff or Leeds, who played out that 2-2 thriller earlier on today in the FA Cup third round. So there you have the complete list of FA Cup fourth round ties that will be taking place, of course, later in the month as we focus back onto events taking place this afternoon here on Football Live on Briller FM, with you through until 7:30 p.m. I should say, this evening. Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 1, Manchester City 3, Chelsea 0. Still the latest scores from the two FA Cup third round ties we're covering this afternoon. We head back to the featured match that we're covering in Italian Serie A. It's Sampdoria against Napoli. Isaac Dilks.
Napoli are just inches from a second goal in this game. It's Kvaratskhelia who picks the ball up at the end of a nice sweeping break from Napoli after a Sampdoria corner. It's Lobotka who picks it up on the edge of his own box, drives forward 15-20 yards before playing a lovely pass to Matteo Partana on the right flank. He hits an incredible first-time ball with his weaker foot across the box into Kvaratskhelia, and on his left foot he just drags his shot wide of the far right post. But at the moment, just before half-time, at 47 minutes, it's still Napoli 1, Sampdoria 0.
So the league leaders still in front in that game. Let's just rattle through some other final scores for you from the action that has taken place in today's football in Premier League. This is a final score. Aqua United 0, Bendel Insurance. I haven't got this score. Thanks, John. We'll confirm that for you very, very shortly. That was action taking place in the Nigerian Premier League. 0-2. Sorry, cheers, mate. That's how it finished there. Aqua United 0, Bendel Insurance 2 in the Nigerian Premier League. That's a final score. In the Dutch Eredivisie, final scores for you. Utrecht 1, Feyenoord 1, Cambuur 0, FC Volendam 3, Nijmegen 1, Ajax 1, and Excelsior 1, Groningen 0. They are all final scores from the Dutch Eredivisie. Feyenoord, top of the table there, beaten just once this season. At the top of the table, 3 points clear of Ajax. And in the Belgian Jupiler Pro League, 2 final scores to give you. Genk 3, Club Brugge 1. Club Brugge reduced to 10 men in that game. And Waregem 2, Mechelen 0 is how it ended in that game. Anderlecht, they are in action a little bit later on today. In fact, they are underway already. Anderlecht against Royal Union is currently goalless in that game. They played around 22 minutes or so there. So you're up to date with all the latest scores from the top European leagues here on Football Live on Brilla FM. And I can tell you there's been further red card news coming in from our featured match, Sampdoria against Napoli. Confirmation of that very, very shortly. In fact, ignore that because that was from earlier on this afternoon. So my apologies, just the 1 red card in that game so far. And that was awarded to Thomas Rincon, who was given his marching orders for Sampdoria, who still trail at home to Napoli by 1-0 in that game. In fact, they've reached half-time there. So in a very timely fashion, let's get a half-time report from Isaac Dilks, Sampdoria against Napoli.
Yeah, we've just reached half-time here at the Stadio Luigi Ferraris, and it's ended Sampdoria 0, Napoli 1, with Sampdoria down to 10 men, as you've just said. Thomas Rincon with a reckless challenge to get himself sent off around the 40-minute mark. It's been all Napoli, despite being quite a stodgy and stop-start game because of the rain, the difficulties to play in. Napoli had all of the possession, and Sampdoria have really struggled to get anything going in the attacking third. They defended well, they defended their box well, and only allowed Napoli 1 or 2 clear-cut chances. But with 10 men, it's going to be quite a difficult and long way back for Sampdoria if they're going to get anything out of this game. So at half-time, Sampdoria 0, Napoli 1.
Still goalless there. It's certainly not goalless at the Etihad in our FA Cup third round tie that we're featuring on Football Live this afternoon. Manchester City against Chelsea as we rejoin Jack Hesson and also Ed Dowling as well. And first of all, Ed, coming to you, just a word on Graham Potter, because he's really under pressure at the moment, isn't he? When you look back, when he started his tenure at Stamford Bridge, he started it in really positive fashion, actually. They went 9 matches unbeaten in all competitions, but he's coming under a lot of pressure now. As mentioned, they've lost to the likes of Arsenal, Newcastle and Manchester City twice, although it looks as though it's going to be a third time now this season. Former Chelsea striker turned pundit Chris Sutton suggesting that the Chelsea head coach may not last long at Stamford Bridge following the defeat on Thursday. And if they are beaten today, which seems likely, that is a possibility.
It depends. It really, really depends, Chris, because Todd Boehly has spoken about there being a long-term project with Potter in charge. And I think he's tried to stamp his authority on this Chelsea side, Todd Boehly, and he's looking to get his man in, which he believes is Potter. So for him to then sack him when things aren't going too well would be definitely a change of heart, a change of message, so to speak, because look, everyone knows Chelsea don't really have the squad at the right level for where they want to be in the league. It's not good enough. You go across the board. I think most Chelsea fans would agree there's a lot of players that need to leave. So to then sack Potter for inheriting the situation would be very harsh, I believe. But we don't know. This is Chelsea. So, we've seen how many Chelsea managers go through the door. We'll have to wait and see what Todd Boehly does. We've never seen him in the Premier League before, but it's not good for Chelsea fans right now. I can only imagine what they must be feeling watching this game, and they're so far off the pace of this City side, Chris.
Yeah, they're so far off the pace of this City side this afternoon, and just looking back at the Premier League table, they're so far off the pace of a potential European qualification spot this season as well, aren't they? They're currently lying 10th, 25 points, some 8 points behind Tottenham in 5th at the moment as well. So it's not looking good for them.
It's not, no. And you think they have had a very chaotic year, haven't they? I mean, we will forget maybe about Roman Abramovich and the way he left the club, and there was a massive embargo placed on the club for a long time. So they've had to undergo a lot of trials and tribulations at Chelsea. And I think a lot of people understand that. And, sacking Tuchel a month in to his season after spending how much money they did was not exactly an ideal start. But we've seen Potter's men in the league, and they just hasn't been good enough. We saw them against Forest the other week, and no one could be happy with that. There's no excuse to be not picking up a maximum of 3 points. What was a championship side last year. So much to think about if you're a Chelsea fan. To sack Potter, I don't think that's the answer. We'll have to wait and see. Jack, question for you in terms of where do you see Chelsea? Do you think Todd Boehly was going to get rid of him really at this stage?
It's difficult to tell. If you look at Chelsea's reputation as a football club, it's absolutely, within the realms of possibility of him leaving. You look at Premier League teams as a whole in that sense, with how easily they sack managers. The mistake and the damage was done, I think, when they sacked Thomas Tuchel. Champions League winner, they spent a lot of money on him in the summer. This isn't Potter's team. He doesn't have the players to set up the way that he wants to play, which was similar to how he played at Brighton with wing backs and flooding the midfield. He's not able to do that with the players he's got at his disposal. One thing you notice especially is just the depth. They don't have the players to bring on the park. They're bringing on at the moment youngsters. They brought on Fofana, 20 years old, his first ever game for Chelsea. And you look at the opposite number, Manchester City. Yes, they made changes, but it's still a strong team, and they've still got Erling Haaland on the bench. So that's the bar of where Chelsea need to get to, and where they are right now just isn't good enough for the standards that Chelsea have set over the last 15 to 20 years.
And Jack, that makes for an interesting question, really, isn't it? Because just how much influence does Graham Potter have on the transfer decisions, do you think?
Honestly, it's difficult to tell. We will know more. This is his first window as Chelsea manager. You don't really see that many comings and goings in the January, so you're looking at the summer, if he is still in the job, of course, in the summer. But I think he should at least get that window and then at least get time going into the next season, because as it's been mentioned, there's been so much turmoil around the football club that it's really difficult in those kind of circumstances to actually have any kind of success. So even if they were to write off this season, rebuild and go on to the next with Potter as manager, getting players to put in his style in the summer, they might wield some positive results in the long term. I think sacking another manager of a fairly high quality is not the way for them to go this season.
A story that will certainly unfold in the coming weeks and months. Many thanks to Jack Hesson and Ed Dowling reporting on Manchester City against Chelsea, where City still currently 3 goals to the good in that game at Villa Park. Villa still ahead in their match against League 2 Stevenage. Barry Swain.
Yeah, just about 1-0. There's been a few chances, one at both ends. In fact, Ashley Young is just coming on. He actually was born and bred in Stevenage, so an interesting game for him, the former Watford, Manchester United and England man. We've also seen, both sides have been making changes. Buendia, Ramsey on for Villa. Jamie Reid is good and can get a goal from attacking midfield positions for Stevenage has come on. Coutinho is off. Kane Smith, who played for Boreham Wood against Everton last season in the FA Cup, is on for Stevenage as well. Danny Ings couldn't get the ball from underneath his feet 6 yards out to convert to make it 2-0. And then a couple of minutes later, a really good chance for Callum Chambers. Doesn't score many goals, Callum Chambers, and he got there in front of the defender, but his shot just skimmed the wrong side of the post and out for a goal kick. Just a few moments ago, Jake Reeves bursting forward from the midfield for Stevenage, shot from the edge of the box across the face of goal and out for a goal kick. It's the best that Stevenage have carved out in this second half. At 1-0, they're still in with a chance. 18 minutes to go. Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 0.
Couple of final scores to give you from the Scottish Premiership. It ended Dundee United 0, Rangers 2 in that game, which means that Rangers reduced the deficit at the top of the Premiership table to 9 points. They're 9 points behind Celtic as it stands now. And a further result to give you from this afternoon from the Scottish Premiership. Motherwell 2, Hibs 3 is how it ended in that game. It remains at half-time, of course. Sampdoria 0, Napoli 1 in our featured match in Italian Serie A. They'll be getting underway for the second half very, very shortly. Sampdoria, of course, reduced to 10 men in that game. Victor Osimhen giving Napoli, the league leaders, the lead in the 19th minute there. And as I said, the second half getting underway very, very shortly there. You're listening to Football Live here on Brilla FM. Of course, just a quick reminder, tomorrow night, Oxford United against Arsenal. Oxford United of League One in FA Cup third round action against the Gunners. It is the final tie of the third round, kicking off at 9 p.m. tomorrow in front of the Oxford United supporters. It will be what will be a packed sellout crowd at the Kassam Stadium. Arsenal, of course, the most successful club in the FA Cup. They're going for a 15th victory in the competition in their history. Oxford United not really in the best vein of form at the moment, having won just once in their last 5 outings in League Two. That's kicking off tomorrow at 9 p.m. Oxford United against Arsenal. And of course, just fast forwarding to next weekend, we'll be back with Premier League action here on Football Live. Plenty to look forward to next Saturday. Well, I'll be in the hot seat once again with our top team of reporters as we have a whole host of top Premier League matches on offer for you. Brighton at home to Liverpool. Wolves taking on West Ham United at Molineux. Nottingham Forest, who of course were dumped out of the FA Cup unceremoniously yesterday by a championship outfit Blackpool, where they lost 4-1. They entertained Leicester City at the City Ground. And Everton against Southampton, another one of the matches that we are covering next weekend here on Football Live, as the pressure mounts, of course, on Frank Lampard. What a huge game that is. I don't like to use the term relegation 6-pointer, but it really is, isn't it? Southampton, of course, who got their first win under their new coach, Nathan Jones, yesterday after beating Palace 2-1 in their FA Cup third round tie. A couple of other matches to look forward to next weekend as well. Saturday here on Football Live, Reading against Queen's Park Rangers in the Championship as well. So plenty on offer next weekend here, and you'll hear it all unfold on Football Live on Brilla FM. I can tell you that they've kicked off in the top in Portugal. Maritimo against Sporting Lisbon. Currently 0-0 in that game. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news from that match as well. But they just kicked off currently. Maritimo 0, Sporting Lisbon 0 in that game in the top flight of Portuguese football. Let's head back then to the Etihad Stadium, where we have, I think, just under 15 minutes or so remaining of that FA Cup third round tie. Manchester City against Chelsea, and Manchester City at the moment, Ed Dowling, cruising through to a fourth round tie, potentially against Arsenal in the next round. Yes,
It's cruise control, really, for City. Now, it's one of the few things, when you go 3-0 down to Manchester City, in the second half, usually as a spectator, you can just turn the game off because they're going to kill the game, and it's very unlikely that any team's going to really come back. And that has been, so far, what has been happening in this game. Chelsea, I think Potter's brought some youngsters on just to try and freshen things up a bit, give them a run out against what is a really top side and just go again in the league next week. It looks like Chelsea are heading out of the FA Cup, unfortunately for them, and City will be licking their lips, actually, a chance to play Arsenal. To get a massive team like Arsenal out of the way so soon would really set City up for another successful FA Cup campaign. But Jack, in terms of this Chelsea performance, what's this going to mean for them going forward? A lot of players, I've seen some interacted online about Mason Mount and how anonymous he's been in this game. What do you think this is going to mean for Chelsea long term, such a result like this, getting knocked out of yet another competition?
You know what, it's got to the point now where if this does finish 3-0, I think some people might look back at that and go, right, okay, that could have been worse. And it certainly could have been worse. City, they've got the slippers on, they've got the cigars out, they're just seeing this out until the end of the game. They've got bigger fish to fry, Manchester United, and on-form Manchester United in the Premier League next week. So as you mentioned, they're killing the game off. Chelsea are trying to throw everything at the wall to see what sticks. It's not happening at the moment. As I mentioned, they've got a lot of youngsters out there now. Can that fashion a chance before the end of the game? I can imagine Chelsea fans won't be happy about this regardless. In terms of players like Mason Mount, he hasn't been up to the level that you expect from a player like him. He has, to be fair, only had the only chance of the game for them, but you expect a lot more from some of the players that Chelsea have at their disposal.
And Jack, just looking at Manchester City again, of course, they're fighting on all four fronts in competitive competition once again this season. It's a really important week for them as well. They're cruising to victory, as we know, against Chelsea at the moment, sailing into the fourth round. They've got a trip to Southampton on Wednesday for a place in the EFL Cup semi-finals as well, and you'd expect them to clear that hurdle quite comfortably, given the state that the Saints are in at present.
Yeah, I mean, for Southampton, they might look to try and push forward because that might be the only chance of any kind of success this season. But really, you only see that going one way, as is the case this evening. And then going into that Premier League game against Manchester United, it's a must-win for them. Every single Premier League game is a must-win for them. They want to try and win the Premier League. They won't be giving that up just yet. But yeah, they are a team fighting on all fronts at the moment, as I'd expect they would like to be. And yeah, clinical from them this evening. They're going to see this game out with 12 minutes to go, and you expect the same in the midweek. The Manchester United game is going to be a lot tougher, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of focus on getting a positive result in that. But at the moment, 78 minutes played, Manchester City 3, Chelsea 0.
Yeah, the big Manchester derby next weekend, of course, taking place on Saturday, kicking off at 1:30 p.m. United against City at Old Trafford. Let's head back to Villa Park for latest news. Aston Villa against Stevenage, with about under 10 minutes or so remaining in that game as we rejoin Barry Swain.
Yeah, still Aston Villa leading by that 1-0 as breaking play at the moment, actually. Ludvig Augustinsson is playing at left-back today for Aston Villa. He's just got in for a sliding challenge on the fullback and Stevenage, the wing-back, James Wilding. And he's gone in and he's played the ball, but he's then caught the foot of Wilding. He's got a free kick out of it, but he's now limped off as a result of that injury. He's moved off gingerly. He's going to be replaced by the substitute, not a bad left-back substitute, so has it, Luca Digne coming on. Villa have had the lion's share of the possession. Last 10 minutes, the chances have kind of died down a little bit. Watkins has travelled down the left-hand side after coming on as a substitute, but you know, he ran into traffic just a few moments ago when he hit the penalty area. Pierre Gianni with a very good challenge. Stevenage labouring, one or two tired legs out there. The fresh legs that have come on, they will help carry them forward. Maybe one last chance for Stevenage. Well, they need to hurry up. We're into the last 10 minutes. League Two still chasing this one, still in with a hunt. The Premier League side are ahead. Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 0.
Unai Emery's side still narrowly in front in that game, but it is still only a narrow lead at the moment. That first half goal, of course, for Aston Villa from Morgan Sanson earlier on, still keeping them ahead there. And of course, Aston Villa, should they hang on and beat Stevenage, they will face a trip to Stoke City in the fourth round of the FA Cup. Just touching on the Premier League again, of course, back next weekend. It all starts on the Friday night. In fact, Fulham at home to Chelsea in that West London derby, kicking off at 9 p.m. on Friday evening, followed by a whole host of matches to look forward to on the Saturday, which I've been through the ones that we're covering here on Football Live, the early kickoff. In fact, I should tell you that Fulham against Chelsea is on the Thursday evening. Aston Villa against Leeds on the Friday. So Fulham versus Chelsea on Thursday, kick-off 9 p.m. Aston Villa against Leeds on the Friday evening. And, of course, Saturday gets underway with that Manchester derby, United against City at Old Trafford. United coming into some form at the moment as well. Of course, they knocked out Everton, didn't they, on Friday night in their FA Cup third round encounter, and as I said, Eric Ten Hag just starting to get a tune out of Manchester United as well. And just looking at the Premier League standings as well, of course, they are currently in fourth spot as well on 35 points, along with Newcastle as well. So look forward to next weekend here on Football Live. Let's just give you a few latest scores in Spanish La Liga. It's Sevilla 1, Getafe 0. At the moment in that game, and also in the Dutch Eredivisie. Of course, I've given you final scores from all the matches that took place earlier on in that division. In the Belgian Jupiler Pro League, as they approach half-time, it is Anderlecht 0, Royal Union 0. Penalty news from the Etihad Stadium. And I can believe that Manchester City have been awarded a penalty in that game. So it's just going to be rubbing salt into the Chelsea wounds. Details of that to follow. But Manchester City have been awarded a penalty, not yet converted, I believe. But we'll keep you fully up to date here on Football Live. In fact, it's going to be Riyad Mahrez, I understand, who's going to take the penalty. Of course, they already had a first half penalty that was converted by Julian Alvarez. Let's head back now to the Etihad and join Ed Dowling for news of that penalty. Ed. In fact, before we get there, I can tell you that that penalty has been converted by Riyad Mahrez. So it's now Manchester City 4, Chelsea 0 with just over 6 minutes remaining there. Manchester City 4, Chelsea 0. And it's going to be a hat-trick of wins for Manchester City against Chelsea this season. Of course, earlier on this season, they already dumped them out of the EFL Cup. They beat them in the Premier League on Thursday. Now 4-0 up and dumping them out of the FA Cup third round tie. Let's hear about that penalty as we rejoin Jack Hesson and, first of all, Ed Dowling.
Yes, Chris, it was Koulibaly. It was at a torrid time in Manchester this evening. It was and really clever movement, and Koulibaly just a bit too aggressive. He knocks him to the floor, and sometimes you can see that not given. I believe it probably was a penalty, all things considered. And up steps Riyad Mahrez, who easily converts his second and City's fourth, and Chelsea's day goes from bad to worse. What did you make of that penalty?
Yeah, it was a lovely penalty and a great finish from me. Great plays, had a good afternoon. Right in to the top right-hand corner, and it really completes an absolutely rousing afternoon for Manchester City, especially in the second half where they've been playing in second gear. They still managed to get a goal. Manchester City 4, Chelsea 0, 84 minutes played.
84 minutes played in that game. Let's head back to Villa Park because it's all happening there. Aston Villa against Stevenage. Barry Swain.
Oh my goodness me, Stevenage might be in with a lifeline here because they have been awarded a penalty subject to VAR. They had a goal ruled out in the first half, remember, because of VAR. They've never played in front of VAR before, but my goodness me. Just looking at the VAR replay, by the way, and the shirt tug from Dendoncker was on the Stevenage number 10, the substitute Campbell. Now, the first tug of that shirt is outside the box, and I'm wondering if they're going to give a free kick rather than a penalty here, or even just wave it away, because I don't know if you can give the free kick with VAR. But a red card has come out as a consequence of that shirt pull, bringing down the substitute Campbell, and the red card has gone to Leon Dendoncker, the former Wolverhampton Wanderers player, the Belgian international. He's gone. VAR are having a really long look at this one. Is it inside? Is it outside? Will Stevenage have their penalty and their chance to take this back to the Lamex Stadium for a replay in 10 days? We're still waiting. Dendoncker's still on the pitch because he knows that VAR could still turn over this red card. Come back to us in a couple of minutes, Chris, and hopefully I'll be able to clear this all up for you.
We certainly will, but what drama we have then at Villa Park, and there's always drama, isn't there, in the FA Cup third round, one of the highlights in the footballing calendar, and we'll keep you fully up to date on developments there. Stevenage with a penalty, Dendoncker red carded, and goal news, I can tell you, coming in from Villa Park. And that penalty has been converted. It is Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 1, and it looks as though Steve Evans' men could be taking Villa back to a replay there with just over, a little over 2 minutes of normal time remaining in that game. Such drama at Villa Park. It's now 1 apiece in that game. Let's head back to the Etihad Stadium briefly for an update. Manchester City against Chelsea. As we close in on the final whistle there. In fact, before we do, straight back to Barry Swain at Villa Park. Barry.
Yes, it looks like Stevenage are going to take this one back to Hertfordshire. He sent the goalkeeper the wrong way. Substitute Jamie Reid, always dependable in front of goal, and he's celebrating with a large contingent of Stevenage fans that have made their trip up here. This is a dream result for them to take it back to the Lamex in 10 days. Aston Villa have absolutely gifted them this. What on earth Olsen and Dendoncker were doing to play the ball like that on the edge of their own penalty area. They've been punished. VAR has sided with the referee and sided with Stevenage this time. 88 minutes on the clock. It's Jamie Reid from the penalty spot. It's Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 1. And this has been a brilliant FA Cup third round weekend. And here's another storyline for you.
Absolutely. What a weekend it has been. We had so many shocks yesterday. Of course, Wrexham of the non-league dumping out Coventry. And of course, what else? We have Sheffield Wednesday knocking Newcastle out as well. Any number of shocks. And we have another one on our hands this afternoon as well, in the sense that Stevenage look as though they're going to be taking Aston Villa to a third round replay. It's currently Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 1 as the final whistle approaches at the Etihad Stadium. Manchester City against Chelsea. We rejoin Jack Heston and first of all Ed Dowling.
Yeah, Chris, about 2-3 minutes left of normal time, and Chelsea have just been so far off the pace. One player who really has struggled in particular is Koulibaly. As we know, City's players they're all fairly diminutive, quick, smart, and they're getting him in behind, and they seem to be targeting, to be honest, and he just seems miles off it today for whatever reason. Foden's had the better of him, and as has, Cole Palmer, who's actually had a really good performance against the top side in Chelsea. Pretty devastating stuff for the blue side of West London. Graham Potter's going to have to go back to the drawing board on this one because it's not going to get any easier in the league either. And this is not going to be good for the confidence of those players. But as for City, it's been a really, really strong performance across the board. And bear in mind, they've heavily rotated as well. And they haven't missed a beat. Alvarez has been very, very good. And that usual spine of City players, your Bernardo Silva, and the like has just been so solid as you'd expect. Kyle Walker as well, the captain today. Really strong performance from City, business as usual for them, but Chelsea, a lot of work to save this season, Chris. About 90 minutes gone here at the Etihad.
Oh my word, I think we have the tie of the FA Cup third round at Villa Park. For the goal news, Barry Swain.
Oh my goodness me, it's Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 2. That's right, the League Two side have scored two very, very late goals here. And the winning goal, it looks like the winning goal, Campbell, the substitute, who came on with Jamie Reid, who scored from the penalty spot. It's Dean Campbell from a short corner. He's on the edge of the penalty area, the corner, he cuts inside and he just slams it in at the near post. Olsen beaten at his near post. Not great goalkeeping, in fact shocking goalkeeping. But the League Two side have just gone and taken the lead here. And we are, a minute or so into 6 minutes of stoppage time. I think there might be one or two nervous people from Hertfordshire for the next 5 minutes. Can they hold on? At the very worst, they're going to take this one to a replay. It's Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 2. And it's another major headline in the FA Cup third round.
So absolutely incredible. What a weekend it has been. One of the most memorable FA Cup third round weekends I can remember for a long while. But Stevenage backs to the wall, no doubt. 6 minutes of injury time, as Barry just alluded to. But what an incredible turnaround of events there at Villa Park. Now, Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 2. 2 goals in about 2 or 3 minutes or so. Dean Campbell there. 1 minute into time added on, and Stevenage could be heading back into the fourth round of the FA Cup. We'll keep you posted on further developments in that game. A couple of minutes of injury time added on in the match between Manchester City and Chelsea at the Etihad. In fact, the full-time whistle has just blown there. We'll get a full-time report very shortly from Ed Dowling and Jack Hesson, just as soon as we get an update from the featured match that we're covering in Italian Serie A this afternoon. Sampdoria against Napoli. And here's Isaac Dilks.
Yeah, not quite as exciting here, Chris, as it is in England at the moment. Napoli just consolidating possession. They've made a couple of changes at half-time, both sides, most notably for Napoli. We've got Kim Min-jae coming off, who's been so resolute for them this season at centre-back, and Amir Brahmani coming on. I imagine Luciano Spalletti probably has one eye on that game on the 13th of January against Juventus, a top-of-the-table clash. So probably just, covering his bases here and making sure Napoli don't concede any silly injuries in the rest of this game. But after 55 minutes, still Napoli 1, Sampdoria 0.
Manchester City have demolished Chelsea this afternoon at the Etihad Stadium. They're through to the fourth round of the FA Cup. For a full-time report, here's Jack Hesson and first of all, Ed Dowling.
City 4, Chelsea 0. A great day for the citizens. Their rotational players like Mahrez and Alvarez putting in some really top performances, with Foden also chipping in with a goal around about the halfway mark. As for Chelsea, one of the worst performances, I think, of the season, and that really is saying something. Potter had to heavily rotate his side here at the Etihad, just despite playing City 3 days earlier, so you have a bit of sympathy for him and Chelsea. But City also played in that game as well, and it just goes to show the difference in quality of depth between these two sides. Potter has to go again in the league. His future really will be in doubt now at Stamford Bridge after yet another disappointing result. As for Pep Guardiola, they're into the next round. And if things go the way they should do, they should be facing Arsenal, and that is going to be a real treat for the neutral. As for you, Jack, what do you make of it out there? The disparity between the teams in terms of the quality was really clear, wasn't it?
Yeah, the strength and depth has been evident between these two sides, and that's a third straight one in 3 different competitions for City. They're clearly a team miles ahead of Chelsea. For Chelsea, barring a Champions League miracle, the season is pretty much all but over. They need to try and recover in the league. And yeah, I think the scoreline perfectly sums up where both sides are at the moment, and it finishes Manchester City 4, Chelsea 0.
That's how it ended then at the Etihad Stadium. They are still playing at Villa Park. Aston Villa against Stevenage. Barry Swain.
Yeah, they're putting everything they can at Stevenage at the moment. Aston Villa throwing everything for them. Leon Bailey, who's had a very poor game for my liking, down the right-hand side. He's just had a snapshot of goal, and again, it's miles off the target. He's a Premier League player, should be hitting the target, or at least getting it somewhere near the goal. It's miles away from the goal. Mind you, he's just darted down the right-hand side, sent across into the box. Nervous moments for Stevenage, but they've managed to somehow usher it away, and Aston Villa are still probing down the left-hand side as we speak. But Stevenage holding on. By my reckoning, we've got about 30 seconds of injury time here. Chris, come back very shortly, and hopefully we'll be able to confirm a shock.
We certainly will, and I think you could probably safely say that would be the shock of the round. We've had quite a few this FA Cup third round, but that certainly, I think, probably tops them all if it should stay that way with just seconds remaining. We are very nearly at the end of the programme here on Football Live. Of course, just a quick reminder, we'll be back next Saturday with more Premier League action to look forward to. In fact, I can tell you the full-time whistle has blown at Villa Park. Aston Villa against Stevenage. Wow, what a finish to that game. Barry Swain.
Yes, indeed. Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 2, and nobody saw this one coming, 10 minutes ago? We were right in the 87th minute. Villa were just running down the clock. It was back with the goalkeeper, Olsen. He rolls it out to Dendoncker, who gets it lost under his feet, ends up pulling back the shirt of the Stevenage number 10, Campbell. It's a penalty by VAR's reckoning. It's a penalty by the referee's reckoning, and it's dispatched brilliantly, sending the goalkeeper the wrong way from Jamie Reid. And you're thinking, here we go, here's a replay at the Lamex in 10 days' time. The Stevenage then bursting forward again, down the left-hand side, down the right-hand side rather, winning a corner. The corner's taken short to the substitute Campbell. He's got loads of time, Dean Campbell, just on the corner of the area on the right-hand side, steps into the box, still unchallenged, and he rams the ball low and hard in at the near post. What on earth was Robin Olsen, the goalkeeper, doing? I'm not so sure. But at times today, Aston Villa have seriously lacked Premier League quality at both ends, and that's cost them dearly today. Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 2, and like you say, Chris, one of the shocks of the round.
Absolutely. We will recap the FA Cup scores for you from today very shortly here on Football Live on Brilla FM, as we just pause for breath following that finish there at Villa Park. Quite incredible. It's what the FA Cup is all about. Let's check in for the last time with Isaac Dilks, who's covering our featured match in the Italian Serie A this afternoon. Sampdoria against Napoli.
Yeah, it's still 1-0 to Napoli here, although they've been pressing Sampdoria very hard in the last few minutes. They've been camped out in the attacking third, just peppering the goal with crosses and shots, but nothing is falling quite their way and doubling their lead as of yet. Sampdoria defending well, but really they're chasing shadows in that Napoli midfield, as you'd expect down to 10 men. I think in the last half an hour of this game, you'd expect Napoli to get a couple more goals, really cement that win and gain that 7-point advantage heading into a massive fixture against Juventus later in the week. But after 60 minutes, it's still Sampdoria 0, Napoli 1.
And it's still looking very bleak as well too for Sampdoria, Isaac, isn't it? And their long stay in the Serie A is seriously under threat now.
It is massively. I mean, Filip Jurisic has just come on the pitch in replacement of Manolo Gabbiadini, who had a very poor game, and he's their top scorer in the league currently with only 2 goals. So that just tells you they've been struggling in front of goal. I think it's 8 in 16 so far in Serie A. So if they can find a replacement in this January window, some firepower up top, you never know what might happen. But at the moment, yeah, they're staring down the battle of a horrendous relegation season here.
They certainly are in the 62nd minute of that game, and it remains Sampdoria 0, Napoli 1 in Italian Serie A. Napoli looking as though they will open up that 7-point lead at the top of Serie A this evening. Well, what an afternoon it's been in the FA Cup as we just recap the final scores for you from today's action in the 2 matches that we featured here on Football Live on Brilla FM. Manchester City 4, Chelsea 0, the final score, and Aston Villa 1, Stevenage 2, as you heard. Elsewhere, the other full-time scores from earlier on today in the third round: Bristol City 1, Swansea 1, Derby 3, Barnsley 0, Leeds 2, Cardiff 2, Leeds 2 rather. Cardiff throwing away a 2-0 lead in that game. Hartlepool 0, Stoke 3, Norwich 0, Blackburn 1, Stockport 1, Walsall 2 as well. So what an afternoon it has been. That's just about it from us. That's our coverage done for today here on Football Live as Manchester City trounced Chelsea at the Etihad to progress through to the 4th round of the FA Cup with 2 goals from Riyad Mahrez and further efforts from Julian Alvarez and Phil Foden. And of course at Villa Park, Stevenage with one of the shocks of the third round, beating Aston Villa 2-1 with goals from Jamie Reid and Dean Campbell. We'll be back next Saturday with action from the Premier League. Make sure you join us then. But right now, we hand you back to our colleagues in Nigeria. From everybody here on Football Live, a very good evening to you.
Yep, Bruno, great stuff, everyone.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Well done. We brought home the bacon again.
Yeah, Isaac, I don't know what happened, but towards the end, you sounded much better, so I don't know what happened there. So
I think I was just looking away from my compressor a little bit too much, possibly not pointing quite straight towards it sometimes. So hopefully, yeah, like you say, it's a bit better towards the end. I'll make sure I keep a lid on that.
yeah, cool, fantastic. Cheers, mate. Chris, yeah, apologise about Leon. You heard it; he was cracking up quite a lot. So,
Yeah, it was. I think it was the right call. It's just great that Barry was able to step in at short notice. Really, otherwise we'd been screwed.
Yeah, I mean, he said that Leon said that his dad said that it's crackling anyway. It was crackling. Yeah, it does crackle on the radio reception, but if you actually listen to the YouTube, because obviously it goes to YouTube. Actually, need to read the broadcast shit.